It is Mocktober, my favorite little series that we do. We do it all through Mocktober, some of the most iconic Mockto boots of all time. And this year, we're doing some more of the affordable, actual, like, everyman kind of guy, that the work boots that they can afford, they work in. You know, because we all would love to have $600 and $700 boots to work in every year, but this is a lot more of what people actually wear to work. It's what they're going to actually be able to afford. And it's, well, honestly more valuable to the real consumer that this whole channel is for, like the people that actually rely on their boots and shoes for a living, that treat them as a piece of equipment. And so a lot of times these brands that focus on those kind of guys, that a lot of times it's just a lot of BS. They're really taking advantage of the people that need their product the most. They're selling them a product that doesn't even represent what they say it is. And so QLTY is a new brand on the scene. You know, you see a lot of advertising from them, you see a lot of claims, you see some unique features, because I want to know, is this boot an actual good boot for the hardworking blue collar bros? Is it decent quality regardless of what it's for? Is there any sneaky little things that we can catch them doing that we've caught other brands doing, kind of like Brunt? And is this actually a new brand coming on the scene to try to make a difference, or is this just another brand that's highly funded, pouring tons of money into marketing, making terrible products with huge margins, selling to the people that need them the most to make themselves a fortune at the expense of the people that need their product the most? That's what we're gonna figure out. And what I mean by new brand is you really can't find much on this brand on the internet. There's a few write-ups here and there. Allegedly the QLTY, I'm assuming the name's QLTY, QLTY. But the QLTY CEO, Andrew, is a former Nike designer who spent years creating footwear for some of the best athletes in the world. That's on their website. Those are their words, not mine. And they took a road trip across the country that had him seeing the country being continually built and rebuilt. Like, already, I'm off to like, I don't like that. That seems like...
I was traveling across the country and I saw what America really was. These hardworking men, and I decided I need to fix,
It's already kind of grossing me out. But according to Andrew's LinkedIn, he has a pretty solid track record in the footwear game, to be fair, because he was that global design director at Nike. He co-founded In Footwear that was acquired by Danner. He was the vice president of product at Wolverine Worldwide. And so it seems like this is a lot more of a case where it could be an actually decent boot and not just a complete cash grab. And with all that experience, he decided to use his experience to create a fit that is tailored to the long hours the blue collar athletes spend in the blue collar athletes, stop that. So he contracted out his art roommate, Victor Soklow, from college and started making boots. And we don't know the dates, we don't know when it started, but according to pitchbook.com, QLTY was officially started in 2019 and raised $205,000 in funding. So not nearly the crazy millions of dollars of funding we saw from Brunt. It's a little bit smaller, so there's still some hope. Look at all these QLTYs. You know, we originally started selling our QLTYs in limited sizes and our 4 or 5 standard leathers, but they're so popular and people are always asking us for more specialty leathers that other brands use, like some Red Wing leathers, some Shrunken Bison leathers, some whites and Thoroughgood leathers, and Bloodcore. These aren't quite available yet, but I just wanted to tease them to you guys because the Drifter 3s launch on the 17th, and that's when these will be released. We might sell a few just if you guys really want them. And then all these new QLTY leathers also come in our coasters, and these have been really popular. The Shrunken Bison, like this black Shrunken Bison, the tobacco Shrunken Bison, and the chocolate, because look how thick they are, you know, and they just have a really cool texture. They're just really tactile feeling, you know, they just kind of have a nice feel to them. And they come in all of our different sizes, our fringe QLTYs and our no-show QLTYs from 6-inch all the way up to 10-inch, and even some Cordovan no-show QLTYs. So check them out below, protect your investment. QLTYs are made to help protect your tongue from wearing out, prevent stuff getting inside your boot, take a little bit of space up if you got a case of the lads, so check them out below. So then what is this boot? Well, the brand is QLTY. The style is the DNVR, which I'm assuming stands for Denver 6-inch Mockto boot. They weigh 1 pound, 11 ounces. They retail for $170, which is not that cheap. You know, we've seen a lot more affordable work boots, and that's what we've got here is a wide variety of its closest competitors in price range. That's a Mockto boot that's in that work boot category. Anything from a more affordable Rock Rooster, like 120, 130, up to your more premium style of like the Irish Setters that are just a little bit above $200. And a couple in between with the Georgia and the Wolverine that he used to work at. And the QLTYs, they were designed in Denver, Colorado, and crafted in Leon, Mexico. Which anytime brands do that, I'm like, okay. You can design something anywhere, like just tell where it's made. So there's these little hints of like some of that branding BS mixed into this, and I'm already like, my flags are going up. If you want a pair of these, check them out via links in my description. So now let's start figuring it out. Is this all BS, or is this actually a decent work boot for the working man? Well, if we start looking at the material, they say the leather is a full grain oiled upper. But it's not full grain. It's not even close to full grain because you can tell it's a sanded leather. This is more of an oiled nubuck. Not the biggest crime in the world. It's really, really common that people don't know what full grain leather is. But it is leather, and there is grain in it, because you look at the cross section, and it is that nubuck where they've sanded that grain down slightly to give it that microfiber look to it, that matte finish. It's pretty thin at 2 millimeters thick. Most of these other work boots you see anywhere from 2 to 2.5. The really heavy work boots, like in the Pacific Northwest, are 3 to 3.5 millimeters. So it's a little on the thin side for a work boot, but it doesn't dip into the 1s to 1.5, so it's close enough for me. We did the burn test on it, and this is where it started to get really weird for me, because when you burn it, it kind of melts in a weird way. Like, I burned it and I put the lighter over to see if it was like melted, and it did kind of scrape off. So I don't know what they put in this, but there's some sort of plasticky thing that melts. I've never seen leather act like that. You know, it's not terrible leather. It's probably just more waterproofed, and we'll see when we do like the waterproof test. Even like around the collar, this is fake leather. You know, we burned it and it just completely melted. But the more interesting thing about this upper to me is the paneling. And I think it's a really nice looking boot, you know, because so many boots in this mock toe category are just the same silhouette over and over and over. You know, a couple different variations in some of the paneling, but it's just a very typical way of making a boot with the vamp, the quarter, the counter cover. You know, it's just, they all kind of look the same. Whereas this is pretty different. It almost looks like a Jordan 3, or almost like it has like little lineman patches here, which is probably more of what it was, which is, you know, because he was a Nike designer. I believe I'm willing to bet that's where the inspiration came from. It's like, how do I combine Nike, like the Jordan 3 kind of look, with work boots that use this like lineman patch or metatarsal cover? And so I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that idea. I like the way that they've reinforced this in a really smart way. It kind of reminds me of how we've tried to roll in some features in the ND series. Like, let's hope that it's actually double layered, because otherwise, why would you do that? Well, we cut these stitches and it's not double layered. These are all independent pieces, and they all butt up. As soon as a layer overlaps, the layer underneath stops. So you don't really get any extra protection. If anything, you lose durability, because instead of it being like a single piece like this that wraps all the way through here, you've got fail points built in because of those stitch lines. Because it's gonna be a lot harder to wear through a piece of leather than it will be to wear through like a 0.5 millimeter thread. And so once you do that, then all of a sudden you've got a hole in your boot and stuff's getting to the inside of your boot. You've lost the quality. If they were actually trying to make this boot with that pattern intentionally, they would have doubled it up, but it's not. And that's kind of how it is across the board. You know, even they've got a couple weird little stitches here and there. The counter cover doesn't overlap anything. This doesn't overlap. And so it's made to look like it's intentionally and functional based, but it's just not. It's just cheap. But it is $170, you know, so keep that in mind. But I still think for $170, you could at least add that functionality of an extra layer right over your metatarsal knuckle. But how good is this leather at the end of the day? Well, we did the puncture test, and it took 140 pounds to puncture through, so pretty impressive. We did the waterproof test to see if the reason this leather kind of melts in a weird way, if it's waterproof. It's not. It's not waterproof at all. It goes immediately to the inside of the boot. So I don't know what that leather is and what's going on in there, but it melts. And then if we look at the inside of the boot, they say online that it's unlined, but there's definitely like a lining in the vast majority of this boot. It's just a basic sneaker liner, but it does have an internal counter cover, which I always like. You know, it's not leather or anything, but at least it has that going for it. And the only part of this boot that's actually unlined is like a 1.5 inch strip right around there. The rest of it's completely lined. So they're already off in several ways in their description and what they're trying to tell you this boot is compared to what it actually is. And so if you're hoping to get an unlined boot, to get all those qualities and stuff you get from unlined boots, you're not gonna get it. But at the same time, in this price range, you see lots and lots of lined boots, and you don't see that many that have a heel counter cover built in. The only one out of this group is this Wolverine, which, once again, he worked for Wolverine. So you're starting to see little things pulled potentially from his other jobs and his other parts of his career baked into this, but it just doesn't seem that they're actually baked in. They're just more, the image of it is baked into this boot. And if we pull out the insole, once again, just very basic and standard. It's just a typical insole. It's not bad though. It's a pretty decent and squishy insole. I like it. I like the little hexagons on it. And it is super comfy. Is it as comfy as this ridiculous mattress that Rock Rooster puts in? No, but these are almost too comfy. But underneath is where I really start to get my concerns, because underneath all of these, you know, and most of these are waterproofed, but you can see all of them have fiberboard underneath, because in this like 350 and under boots, it's pretty hard to find leather insoles, especially waterproof, because there's just a lot to it. The more traditional boots, the more expensive boots, a lot of times you see leather insoles because it's more durable, it's resolable, it doesn't stink as much, doesn't wear out as fast. But in these waterproof boots that are more affordable, a lot of times you just see your typical fiberboard in there with either cork filling or foam filling. You know, all of them have this. They have a shank in it. And so I assume that that's how this one would be built, because it's the same price range. But in all reality, you just get a really terrible compressed cardboard. It's not like it's that big of a difference in quality, but if you're trying to buy a boot in this price range, I wouldn't buy a boot that has the materials of like a $110 boot when you're paying $170, because that's more of what this is. What's even more weird is right around the ball of your foot, there's a different material. And so it also, that material is split. Instead of it being a single layer all the way through, you have that compressed cardboard, some weird felted material, and then more compressed cardboard. So the more you bend that, the more that's gonna fracture and break. And next thing you know, your whole boot's splitting in half. You got a high spot, and there's cracks in the insole because they didn't use just the bare minimum, the standard materials that most people use in this price range of boots. So once again, even though he's got all this experience and this and that, it doesn't seem like this boot is even close to the quality of these other boots in the price range. And even looking at the fine details with the welt, you know, it's a synthetic welt, but it's a really, really hard synthetic welt. You know, this is the type that I'd be more concerned about it splitting over time. But there's plenty of synthetic welts in here. You know, even the more expensive ones have synthetic welts. So not too big of a deal. The slip sole is also really, really hard. You know, it's not that softer rubber that gives you the flexibility. It's a really, really hard rubber. It's like 90 Shore A. And then the outsole is made to look like these more Vibram style outsoles, but it's just a knockoff version. They just took the pattern and made it out of either polyurethane rubber or polyurethane rubber, because on their website it says all three. And it's definitely polyurethane because of how soft and foamy it is, and we burned it and it just acts more like polyurethane. And it's not that this outsole is really terrible and it's gonna wear out really fast, because polyurethane is actually usually more wear resistant than rubber. And so I think you'll be okay, and it's probably enough on par with this. But you just start collecting all those little things that are off, little things that are weird. This being like, oh, I was in the industry and I like know boots and shoes. It's like not enough to have the accurate description with the majority of these parts. It's a little concerning. So let's cut these things in half and see if there's anything redeeming for quality, because right now it seems like quality is kind of spiraling the drain for this Mocktober. Okay, it's time to figure out if quality is actually quality. So let's see what's inside. So what do we have on the inside? Well, like I mentioned, you got that compressed cardboard, at least that fiber, that kind of, I don't even know, this gray material runs underneath the compressed cardboard, but still you're gonna have the same problem, because that you probably do it right now, actually. Let's just do it and I'll show you. Just give it a few bends. You know, this simulates what, like 20 steps? You know what I mean? And yeah, we're already coming apart. And it is glued together, you know, it's not like it immediately starts falling apart like you see some cheap Amazon shoes. So you can you just kind of tear the whole thing apart, and that's brand new and like 10 steps. And you compare that to these other boots, they're just a completely different class of boots. This inside looks a lot more like $110, $120 boots, under $100 boots, because all you have is cheap materials in the insole, you have a foam filler, you've got this really like hard lasting board that has those relief cuts in it, so that when you go to resole it, it's not gonna give you the strength you need. They're gonna have to replace that lasting board, which means they have to replace the welt. And the welt, they say it's a storm welt when it's just a cheap plastic Goodyear welt. And at least it is sewn at the toe, you know, because that's one of those spots where these boots fail. If someone handed me this boot and was like, hey, I want you to tell me how much this boot costs, I'd be like, 100 bucks, maybe 120 if you really want to get stretched out there a little bit. Because this, just objectively, looking at the other boots that we have here in the same price range, the same purpose, the same mock toe thing, this is clearly the worst boot of the bunch. You know, even down to the Rock Roosters, made in China, just like a Chinese made, really cheap, but really heritage focused boot. It's like 50 bucks less, and this is a way better boot. So is this a boot made for the blue collar boys at an affordable price? You know, is this actually made to find a new spot in the market by offering something new and different, or higher value, or a better whatever? No, it's not. It's a terrible boot for 170 bucks. You know, I would not buy this over any of the other boots for any reason. There's not a single thing that this boot does better than any of these other boots. This is for sure at the bottom of the barrel. And this is that boot that, you know, had a lot of potential because you could have this a unique pattern with the metatarsal knuckle. The CEO has a history with Nike and with Wolverine that made this shoe or boot that's better. And all that branding and marketing all centered around the road trip across the country, seeing how the country is being continually built and how we need to help our bros out by making them a comfortable boot. Everyone else is doing it wrong and they're screwing over the working man. We're gonna do it different by making a severely overpriced boot that's gonna fall apart and setting up expectations for the people that rely on these boots as a piece of equipment for their job. They have to know somewhere deep down inside they're selling a terrible boot for way too much money to the people that need it the most. And anytime that happens, whether it's Brunt, whether it's even some of these brands, anytime they do that, it just drives me absolutely insane because that's what it is. It's not like these fashion boots that people are wearing like 4 times a year and they have a huge collection. People need these boots. These are actually boots. And a lot of times the people that need to buy this kind of boot in the sub $200 price range, they only can afford 1 boot a year. And so if you gamble on a new company like QLTY who's promising you all this stuff, and you get this, you're gonna be a little upset. And so hopefully this is just the starting point for QLTY. But I just have a feeling that this feels too much like these brand new companies that are spending way too much money on advertising, under-delivering, selling terrible products to people. So to me, quality is not quality. This is pretty terrible quality, and I would avoid it. You know, maybe there's some of their other products are good, but I would not trust a brand that did this. Hopefully they'll improve in the future. We'll revisit them in a year or two like we did with Brunt. If you want to see all the other videos with this, the Georgia, the Wolverine, the Irish Setters, the Brunt videos, I'll put them all in the links in the description. And we got a few other good work boots coming up pretty soon that will hopefully be better than this, because if we're starting off our Mocktober boards right at the bottom. And the overall board, I'd probably put it in that $110 price range. You know, I think that's about where it lies. So let me know what you guys think. What other Mocktoes you want us to cut apart this year? And we got a stacked Mocktober this year. This is gonna be probably the biggest and best Mocktober we've ever done. And it's gonna be fun. So thank you guys for your support. Tune in on all these videos. We got sneakers, we got work boots, we got high-end boots. So it's gonna be sick. So thank you guys. See ya. I'm in a good mood. I love talking about boots and shoes all day, every day. I love having curly hairs.